let's talk about effective practice. There are a lot of people that go through the motions when they practice. They say, I train this long, but they really just kind of messing around. Or it's like if you go into the gym and you see people they're in the gym for 3 hours, but they're working out for 20 minutes because they're sitting there on their phone in between. They're talking with other people. They're not really working out for 3 hours. Okay. So when it comes to effective training, with shooting, with dry fire, we want to be able to, it's very common with other things. We want to be able to identify what specific things that we want to work on. And typically speaking, we want to order that in terms of the priorities that we have. So pick the big ticket items, let's say transitions and movement, and you're going to focus on that the most. Okay. In your case, it might be a little different. You might want to work on draws and reloads. But the idea is you're picking in a session maybe 1, 2, or 3 main focuses. And when you're working on that one thing, you're focusing on that one thing. When we're training, we want to be very intentional about what we're doing. We want to pay attention and just be aware of what's going on with our focus in mind. Whenever we're doing something, we can really just pay attention to one part of it. So if I'm doing a draw, for instance, I could pay attention to something like how my firing hand index is on the gun. I can pay attention to how my support hand meets it. I can pay attention to how my grip feels at the end. I can pay attention to the speed. There's a bunch of different variables I could play with, but focusing on one thing will typically get you the best results. And it'll also give you the diagnostic ability to determine whether it was better, worse, or the same, whatever it is that you're focusing on. So we pick that focus in the moment. So for instance, with movement for me, it would be being able to hit a precise spot with my foot. So being able to look down, hit a spot quickly and have my gun pre-aimed. So that was the kind of focus that I was working on. When you're focused on one thing, you can't expect everything else to go as well. It'll kind of resort to whatever your training level currently is, your subconscious skill. So don't be upset if you're working on your movement and your shooting is not as good as it would be if you were focusing on your grip and your recoil management and all that. Another thing I like to use a lot of is I like to use timers when it comes to dry fire. So for instance, I want to work on transitions. I have a couple of transition exercises that I do. For one, metronome transitions, another one called 10 and 4, and then random transitions. So I can take each one of those exercises that focus on a little bit of a different thing. Metronome transitions focuses on getting the gun fast from target to target by fixing the trigger press to a set pace. 10 and 4 works on information processing and calling shots at a high speed. Random transitions is just an opportunity to practice random transition arrays so I can get some randomized training and make sure that I'm not building muscle memory on anything. What I'll do is I'll take a 3 to 5 minute timer. I'll set it on my phone and I'll hit start and I will do the repetitions. Something even as simple as a timer from Amazon, right? Just a countdown timer from Amazon. That's also something that I use. There's 5 minutes on here. Once I hit start, I go to it. My intention is that I'm going to stay in focus, heavy laser focus for that entire time that I'm working. Okay. When I'm doing the repetitions, also having good reflections is important. So once you finish your repetition, you're gonna evaluate it. Hey, it was great. It was decent. It might need some work, right? We're gonna make the correction that we want in our mind. So we're gonna say, let's say, we got necessarily not a great grip on the draw. What do we want to address? We're gonna think about what that correction is, not necessarily say it out loud, but we're gonna think about it and then apply it on the next repetition. Evaluate that. Was it better, worse, the same? Okay, and then we could adjust one variable at a time. Adjusting one variable at a time allows us to really know if that variable was worthwhile. If it was better, you can keep it and continue on the path or adjust the next thing. If it was worse, you might want to consider doing something else. Okay, or why was it worse? Was it worse because you didn't really understand what you were doing or you weren't paying attention, right? Either way, we're going to want to change something when we do that. If it's the same, the question that you're going to ask yourself is, is it worth continuing with what I just did? Because maybe it's the same result, but maybe it's more comfortable, right? For instance, I changed my grip recently because of an elbow issue that I had. And the reason why the grip is the same, but the reason why I'm doing it is so that I can relieve some pressure on my elbow so my elbow can recover while I still train. Okay. So that's an example of, hey, the technique is achieving the same results, but so why would I use one over the other? Okay. It's usually related to an indirect factor. Okay. So guys, apply these things, start to think about how you could apply these things in your practice and get to it.